guys, today from a different perspective with great 4 Canon lenses. They are all great for portrait shots and for low light shots and especially for video. We do a comparison between all 50mm lenses by Canon. The first one here is the cheapest one for about €100. So for the moment, the dollar and the euro are quite similar, so approximately 110 US dollars. From the back, as you can see, the overall build quality not the best. It's a little plastic lens, but what would you say? I mean, for €100 with an f1.8 aperture, really nice. So for low light shots, portrait shots, people, whatever, video. And if you have a camera, let's say Canon EOS ADD, and you need a nice little portrait lens, get one of these. This one here is a new version of that one here. As you can see, the bayonet is made of metal, and this one here has a plastic bayonet. This one here is an STM lens silent stepping motor, which is really silent out-focusing motor for about €120. So approximately 135 US dollars. If you would ask me today which lens I would buy, I would definitely go for the STM lens. The overall build quality, as I said, much better than on the 1.8 without the STM motor. The focusing itself really silent, on this here really loud, and the aperture is the same. The bokeh on this lens is a little bit better and more soft than this one here, because this one has 9 aperture blades and this one here features only 8 as far as I remember. And they are available for the full frame and your APS-C sensor, so they all fit to all your Canon cameras. And yeah, let's see, anything to add to this lens? Yeah, the closest focusing distance here is 0.35 meters, and this one here is 10 centimeters more, so you can get much closer with this lens here to your subjects to take photos or videos. Then another lens that's available for about 250 to 350 euros. That's the Canon 50mm f1.4. So the differences between those lenses compared with the aperture is not that much. This is 1.8, this is 1.8, and this is f1.4. Overall, the build quality on this lens is quite nice. So you have a metal bayonet, AF and manual focusing. It has an ultrasonic motor, and I mean, if you need the 0.4 aperture fast exposure time, get one of these. The closest focusing distance on this lens here is 0.45 meters, so it's the same as the old 50mm f1.8. Canon's flagship when it comes to portrait lenses. For about 1,300, 1,400 euros, it's Canon 50mm f1.2L lens, because it's the luxury version. It has the red ring around it. The autofocus on this lens is quite nice. You have an ultrasonic motor, and the closest focusing distance on this lens as well, 0.45 meters. On the side, AF and manual focusing. It has a metal bayonet, and the overall build quality is really nice. So the biggest difference between those lenses, of course, is the price. Here, the f1.8 versions for about 130 euros. The 50mm f1.4 for about 250, 350. And if you need a faster aperture, this here is f1.4. This here is f1.2, and the price difference between those lenses is more than €1,000. So be careful when you buy one of these. I will give you a bokeh test, I will do a portrait test, a sharpness test, and as far as I remember, this one here has so many chromatic aberrations, but it depends a little bit on the version as well. I mean, that's the only version, but there are several serial numbers on the back, so if you have a newer one, it might be better than an older one. But I will do a big comparison between those ones. No unboxing today. I mean, it's basically just a box, and with the L version comes a little bag where you can put it in, but that's all. So enjoy this review. Any questions, state them below this video. Thanks for subscribing, and any thumbs up if you wish to. And yeah, enjoy. Many photos are available. The download link is in the description below. Enjoy. Let's start the review with the chromatic aberrations. The 50mm 1.2 for about 1,500 € is suffering the most from these magenta and green stitches. For this price is a bit of sad, so we are hoping for an update on this one. Complete different is the story with the 50mm 1.4 for 1,000 € less. Shooting wide open at f1.4 you see just a tiny bit of magenta and green stitch. That's all. The best performing lens out of these four is the Canon 50mm 1.8 It's a bit strange that the 50mm 1.8 STM is not as good as the 10-year-old 1.8 although we have new glasses built in the STM. So the loser in this round is the 50mm 1.2L. It's quite obvious that you suffer from vignetting shooting at an aperture of 1.2. The more you stop down to f4, the less is this effect pronounced. By using the 50mm 1.4, you see some dark edges as well. Looks quite the same as shooting at 1.2 with the other lens. Stopping down to f4, you still see some of the vignetting, but not as much as on our problem child, the f1.2. Both f1.8 lenses are similar. At f1.8 you see some dark edges, and as soon as you reach f4 it's still visible, but not as much as on both other lenses like the 50mm 1.2 and the 50mm 1.4. Next topic, lens flare. Personally, I like the lens flare on all 50mm lenses, but there might be someone out there who does not like it, so that's why we deal with it. On the most expensive one, the 50mm 1.2L, the lens flare is quite well pronounced. If you hold the 50mm 1.4 in a 30 to 40 degree angle to the sun, you will suffer a lot from the lens flare. We discover the biggest amount of lens flare on the 50mm 1.8 too. But hey, for 100 € it's quite okay. You all know these photos with the model in the foreground and the sunset in the background. Awesome shots with such a great lens flare. The best result in my point of view we got with the 50mm 1.8 STM. On the STM you got a really nice and soft lens flare. Not too hard and not too soft either. So a great choice for you to have. All files can be found in the description below for download, taken with the 5D Mark IV. Next interesting topic is the autofocus on all Canon 50mm. Sorry, but Sigma was not giving their 50mm for this test. The autofocus worked quite fast and precise on all 50mm. If you plan to get a 50mm for your camera bag, it's a great option for portraits, videos and street photography. I went to New York with the 1.2 version and it was great. Let's start with the most expensive one. There's a lot of glass that needs to be moved, but overall the focus speed on the 1.2 version is fast, and also during live view you can make use of the Touch AF as well. For us the 50mm 1.4 seemed a bit slower in terms of focus speed. But girls and boys, no worries, none of these 50mm lenses is slow at all. They're just a bit different. The cheapest version for 100 € had the loudest autofocus. If you compare it with the 1.2, 1.4 and STM version, you can really tell the difference. But the 50mm 1.82 was the second fastest 50mm of all, and the STM version was the slowest one. If you want to make use of the touch focus, it worked best in combination with the 1.8 STM version. Next heavy topic, why heavy? Because I have to talk a lot, is about the sharpness on all lenses. Starting with the 50mm 1.2, don't expect too much shooting at f1.2. But on the other hand, you should expect more sharpness due to your 1,500 € purchase. When you reach f1.8, you will see the sharpness coming back. Of course, the more you stop down, the better it gets. The 50mm 1.4 is quite similar to both 1.8 versions. At f1.4 we have the same amount of sharpness as with the other ones, starting wide open at f1.8. When we stop down to f1.8 on the 1.4 version, we have the same amount of sharpness as on both 1.8 versions at an aperture of 2.2. Maybe all these numbers were confusing you now, so you better make up your own mind. I provided all of these photos, the link is in the description below. Before you say, oh my gosh, I have to invest now over 1,500 euro for a great lens, I say no. Ask yourself for what you're gonna use the lens. If you take photos for Facebook or Instagram, go with the f1.8 version, that's it. We made our way to Frankfurt East to the Klassikstadt. There was a huge food truck festival at the end of March. Just to let you know what the Klassikstadt is, it's a motor show for classic and expensive cars. So if you like fancy cars and you're in Frankfurt, you should check it out. For us, it was a great opportunity to test the macro feature on all 50mm lenses. The closest focusing distance on all lenses is at 45mm, which is nearly 18 inches, except for the newest one, the 50mm 1.8 STM. On the STM version, the closest focusing distance is at 35mm, which is nearly 14 inches. With all lenses and the fast aperture, you can get close enough to all of your subjects and blur out the background completely. Of course, it would be great to get a little bit closer as well, but anyways, great shots are possible with all lenses. Ideal for food, portraits and detail shots. I had the most fun playing around with the 1.2 version due to its fast aperture. But be aware that it can get more heavy after a while than shooting with the other ones. All files are available for download, the link is in the description below. The main reason why most of you probably gonna get one of these lenses is for taking great portraits. As I have said before, the 50mm 1.2 is the heaviest one of all 4 versions. This can really make the difference if you consider getting the 1.2 version. On the 1.4 and the 1.8 version there is a small difference, but not really that much. When you take photos at f1.2 and you focus on the nose, you can really see the eyes getting blurred already. In my opinion, the best value for money is the 50mm 1.8 STM. It has a better build quality than the 1.8 2 version and the bokeh on it looks more soft. How about your opinion? Do you have any of these 4 lenses? What do you think, price and quality wise? Which one would be your choice? There's a lot of space under this video, thanks for sharing your opinion. We nearly made it, the best to the end. We continue with the bokeh. With the 50mm 1.2 you can blur out the background completely. The closer you get to your subject and model, the more you benefit from this effect. But to be honest, with all other lenses you have a nice looking bokeh as well. I like the bokeh balls most on the 1.2 and the 1.8 STM version. Of course, that's my personal opinion. So how do you think about it? What bokeh do you like most? During hours of darkness you can really benefit of having an aperture of 1.2 instead of a 1.8. During hours of darkness you can really benefit of having a 1.2 aperture instead of a 1.8 aperture. If you really need 1.2 or a 1.4 version, think about wisely before spending a hell of money. I personally like all of them, so you probably can't make many mistakes by buying any of these. Time for a personal conclusion about these 4 Canon fixed focal length lenses. I was using the 50mm 1.2 in former times a lot on my trips to New York and for portrait shots. If you take the chromatic aberrations into consideration and the missing sharpness, I feel that's not fair to charge 1,500 euro for it. For some people might have the weight of this lens an adverse effect, but in combination with the 1DX and the 5D Mark IV, I couldn't say that it was too heavy, but some of you might say so. On the 50mm 1.4 and the 1.2 version, you benefit of having an indication of the focus distance on the upper lens screen. But the 50mm 1.4 cost much more to be significantly better than the 1.8 versions by Canon. 2 things were so annoying on the 1.8 Mark II version: the ultra loud out of focus and the plastic feeling. In my point of view, the best value for money is the 1.8 STM version. The build quality is much better than on the 1.8 2 version. It has a metal bayonet and 9 instead of 8 aperture blades for a better and more round looking bokeh. I hope to see an update of the 1.2 version in the near future with some improvements in sharpness and chromatic aberrations. Don't treat me wrong, it's a great lens and it makes a lot of fun playing around with it. But for 1,500 euros, none of these mentioned aspects should be noticeable. Thanks to Canon Germany for those lenses. The direct link to all lenses is in the description below. Servus und bis bald, ciao!